Four heavyweight legends, one era of absolute dominance, and a debate that will never die. From Lennox Lewis's ruthless precision to Riddick Bowe's savage wars, Evander Holyfield's unbreakable heart, and Mike Tyson's raw, terrifying destruction. This is heavyweight boxing at its peak. Champion versus champion, era-defining rivalries. Fights that didn't just decide titles, but shaped history. These are the top 5 wins that defined each man's heavyweight legacy. The nights when greatness was proven under the brightest lights and the heaviest pressure. Different styles, different paths. One ultimate question. When the dust settles, who truly stands above the rest? Watch the victories. Relive the knockouts. Feel the moments that made legends immortal. Then drop your verdict in the comments. Who ranks number 1 among Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, and Mike Tyson? Let the debate begin. As part of our Top 5 Wins series, we break down the defining victories that shaped Lennox Lewis's legacy. These aren't just wins. They're the nights Lewis proved he belonged at the very top of the heavyweight division, delivering career-defining performances against elite opposition. Number 5. Mike Tyson, 8 June 2002. This is a win that would rank even higher were it not for timing. The Tyson that Lennox Lewis faced was no longer the unstoppable force of the late 1980s, and Tyson's limited success after this defeat slightly dulls the shine. Even so, this was still one of the most anticipated heavyweight fights in boxing history. Years in the making, loaded with animosity, and contested for the WBC, IBF, and Ring Magazine heavyweight championships. Early on, Tyson showed flashes of his old menace. The opening round was competitive, with both men probing behind the jab before Tyson lunged inside and ripped shots to the body. For a brief moment, it looked like the old Tyson might still have something to say. Lewis absorbed it, clinched when needed, and steadied himself after being briefly caught by a left hook. But the tone of the fight was already shifting. From the second round onward, Lewis began to impose his size, reach, and composure. His jab started to land consistently, and every time Tyson tried to close the distance, he was met with thudding uppercuts that stopped him in his tracks. As the rounds passed, the physical toll became obvious. Tyson's face swelled, cuts opened above both eyes, and his attacks became slower and more desperate. By the middle rounds, Lewis was in complete control. He bullied Tyson in close, punished him with sharp jabs and heavy right hands, and drained what little resistance remained. Tyson's early explosiveness faded into exhaustion, while Lewis remained calm, clinical, and ruthless. The end came in the 8th round. Lewis dropped Tyson hard, and when Tyson hit the canvas again moments later, he made no real attempt to rise. At 2:25 of round 8, it was over. Lennox Lewis stood victorious by knockout, having finally conquered the sport's most famous heavyweight on boxing's biggest stage. It may not have been Tyson at his absolute peak, but it was still Lewis delivering a decisive, dominant knockout in one of the most iconic heavyweight clashes of the modern era. Number 4. Donovan "Razor" Ruddock, 31st October 1992. This was the night Lennox Lewis announced himself as a genuine heavyweight force. Facing the feared Donovan "Razor" Ruddock in a WBC heavyweight title eliminator, with a shot at the winner of Evander Holyfield versus Riddick Bowe on the line, Lewis walked in as the underdog. Ruddock, known for his brutal power and smash punch, was a 2-to-1 favorite, while Lewis also put his Commonwealth heavyweight title on the line. From the opening bell, Lewis fought with composure and authority. Using his long, stiff left jab, he kept Ruddock at distance, neutralizing the very weapon most believed would overwhelm him. Ruddock struggled to close the gap, and his offense was largely smothered by Lewis's control and ring intelligence. Then, in the final seconds of the first round, everything changed. As Ruddock dipped forward looking to unleash his power, Lewis detonated a perfectly timed right hand that sent the feared puncher crashing to the canvas. Ruddock barely survived to the bell. Sensing the moment, Lewis went straight back to work in the second. He forced Ruddock into the corner and dropped him again with a sharp combination. Ruddock rose, but the damage was done. Lewis unleashed a final, ruthless barrage, flooring him for a 3rd time. Referee Joe Cortez had seen enough and waved it off. In just over 1 round, Lennox Lewis had demolished one of the most dangerous heavyweights in the world. The win didn't just secure his place as mandatory challenger for the world title. It shattered doubts about his toughness and power, and marked the true arrival of Lewis as a future heavyweight champion. Number 3. Andrew Golota, 4 October 1997. This was one of the most devastating performances of Lennox Lewis's career, and one of the most one-sided heavyweight title fights ever seen. Andrew Golota entered the bout as a dangerous and controversial challenger, coming off 2 consecutive disqualification losses to Riddick Bowe. In both fights, Golota had dominated Bowe, leading comfortably on the scorecards, before repeatedly fouling low and getting himself disqualified. Despite his reputation, many believed Golota posed a serious threat to Lewis due to his size, aggression, and skill. What followed was a complete demolition. From the opening bell, Lewis immediately asserted control with his authoritative left jab, forcing Golota onto the back foot. Within the first minute, Lewis landed a crushing right hook that stunned Golota and drove him into the corner. Smelling blood, Lewis unloaded a brutal 6-punch combination that sent Golota crashing to the canvas. Golota beat the count, but he was badly hurt and visibly unsteady. Referee Joe Cortez allowed the fight to continue, but only moments later, Lewis unleashed another savage assault, firing off a relentless barrage of more than 10 unanswered punches. Golota went down again, overwhelmed and defenseless. Cortez stepped in immediately, stopping the fight after just 95 seconds of action. The victory was not only a knockout, it was a statement. Lewis obliterated a heavyweight many believed could trouble him, reinforcing his status as the most dominant force in the division and delivering one of the most emphatic title wins of the 1990s. Number 2, Vitaly Klitschko, 21st June 2003. This win ranks so highly not just because of what happened on the night, but because of what followed in Vitaly Klitschko's career. In hindsight, Lewis wasn't facing a contender. He was facing a future long-reigning heavyweight champion at the very peak of his physical powers. Klitschko entered as the underdog, stepping in on short notice, yet immediately defied expectations. He began the fight aggressively, taking control of the opening 2 rounds and landing heavy right hands that repeatedly found Lewis's head. In the second round, Klitschko staggered Lewis with 2 clean rights, opening a cut beneath Lewis's left eye and putting himself clearly ahead on all 3 scorecards. Lewis responded in champion fashion. Early in the third round, he fired a thunderous right hand that split Klitschko's left eyebrow open, producing a deep, fight-altering cut. Despite the damage, Klitschko continued to trade fiercely, pushing Lewis through a punishing, high-tempo contest that saw both men absorb and deliver heavy shots. Fatigue began to set in, but neither fighter backed down. As the fight wore on, Lewis leaned on his experience, strength, and inside work, targeting Klitschko's body and exploiting his compromised vision. In the 6th round, Lewis landed a monstrous uppercut that further worsened the cut, leaving Klitschko bleeding badly and struggling to see clearly. Between rounds 6 and 7, the ringside doctor ruled the damage too severe to continue. Because the injury was caused by legal punches, Lewis was declared the winner by technical knockout, retaining his WBC title in one of the most grueling fights of his career. At the time, the stoppage was controversial. Klitschko was ahead on the scorecards, but history has been kind to this victory. Klitschko would go on to dominate the heavyweight division for years, cementing his legacy as one of the toughest and most durable champions of the modern era. That legacy, in turn, elevates this win, marking it as one of the most meaningful and demanding triumphs of Lennox Lewis's reign. Number 1, Evander Holyfield, 13 November 1999. This was the night Lennox Lewis finally removed all doubt and secured his place at the very top of heavyweight history. 8 months after a deeply controversial draw at Madison Square Garden, Lewis and Evander Holyfield met again, this time with everything on the line. The WBA, WBC, IBF, and vacant IBO titles were unified, making the bout for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. It was the biggest heavyweight fight of the era, and Lewis entered determined to leave no room for debate. As in their first meeting, Lewis asserted himself early. He controlled the opening 2 rounds with his jab and ring generalship, establishing distance and tempo. The third round proved pivotal. Lewis edged it on 2 scorecards, while a late Holyfield rally, capped by a sharp right hand to the side of Lewis's head, swayed the third judge. Holyfield then surged, using his experience and inside work to take the middle portion of the fight, winning 4 consecutive rounds and briefly swinging momentum in his favor. But this time, Lewis responded like a true champion. Beginning in round 8, he reclaimed control with disciplined boxing, a commanding jab, and superior physical strength. He outworked and outmaneuvered Holyfield across rounds 8 through 11, steadily breaking his resistance and reasserting dominance as the fight entered its final stages. The 12th round was competitive, but Lewis again did enough on two of the judges' cards to close the contest. When the scores were read, 115 to 113, 116 to 112, and 117 to 111, Lennox Lewis was declared the unanimous decision winner, becoming the first undisputed heavyweight champion in nearly 7 years. While some observers continued to debate the scoring, Lewis's performance left an undeniable impression. He controlled the majority of the fight, adapted when momentum shifted, and proved himself superior over 12 demanding rounds. This victory crowned his career, completing his journey from contender to undisputed champion, and stands as the defining win of Lennox Lewis's legacy. Next up in our top 5 wins series is Riddick Bowe, a heavyweight talent so gifted that, on his best nights, he looked completely unstoppable. Towering size, fast hands, ruthless combinations, and a willingness to trade made Bowe one of the most dangerous champions boxing has ever seen. These 5 wins capture Bowe at his terrifying peak, nights when skill met brutality, champions were pushed to their limits, and heavyweight history was written in real time. When Riddick Bowe was locked in, no one in the division was safe. Number 5. 20 April 1991 versus Tony Tubbs. This is a win that makes the list as much for what it revealed about Riddick Bowe as for how it looked on the night. Facing the slick, experienced former champion Tony Tubbs in Atlantic City, Bowe was still a heavyweight in development, rather than the finished destroyer he would later become. Tubbs boxed cleverly early, using sharp movement, ring IQ, and defensive subtlety to frustrate Bowe and disrupt his rhythm. Many observers felt Tubbs outboxed Bowe across long stretches, and the decision would later be viewed as controversial in parts of the boxing press. What swung the fight officially was Bowe's size, power, and growing command of the jab, which allowed him to apply steady pressure, force exchanges, and bank rounds as the contest wore on. Bowe earned a unanimous decision over 10 rounds, with scorecards reading 96 to 94, 97 to 94, and 96 to 94. While not a dominant performance, it was a crucial one. The fight proved Bowe could stay disciplined, go the distance, and grind out a result against a seasoned, tricky veteran, lessons that would serve him well on the road to the heavyweight title. It also speaks to a wider truth about Bowe's career. Outside his elite peak wins, the depth of his resume thins quickly. That this bout makes his top 5 is less an indictment of the performance itself, and more a reflection of how concentrated Bowe's greatest nights truly were. Number 4. 6 February 1993 versus Michael Dokes. This was meant to be a routine first defense. Instead, it became a brutal reminder of just how dangerous Riddick Bowe was at his physical peak. Fresh off dethroning Evander Holyfield to become undisputed champion, Bowe returned at Madison Square Garden to defend the WBA and IBF titles against former champion Michael Dokes. Dokes entered with a compelling backstory. Once a heavyweight champion himself, he had rebuilt his career after substance abuse issues and lengthy setbacks, earning respect for his resilience and late career comeback. But by fight week, doubts surrounded his preparation, conditioning, and readiness. And inside the ring, those concerns were exposed almost immediately. From the opening bell, Bowe attacked with ruthless intent. He overwhelmed Dokes with heavy combinations, backing him into the ropes and forcing a standing 8 count midway through the first round. Dokes showed little resistance as Bowe continued to unload, landing punch after punch without meaningful reply. At 2:19 of the opening round, referee Joe Santarpia stepped in and stopped the fight, awarding Bowe a first-round technical knockout. The ending was met with boos and controversy. Dokes protested furiously, while the crowd voiced its displeasure and commentators questioned whether the bout should have been sanctioned at all. Yet the punch statistics told a stark story. Bowe landed more than 4 times as many power shots, and Dokes absorbed a sustained beating without defending himself. In truth, this win ranks highly less for competitive drama, and more as a snapshot of Bowe's terrifying prime. A champion with size, speed, and power so overwhelming that even experienced former title holders could be rendered helpless in minutes. Number 3. 11 March 1995 versus Herbie Hyde. This was chaos, courage, and controversy rolled into one unforgettable heavyweight war. With his path to the major titles blocked after losing to Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe took a calculated risk by challenging undefeated WBO champion Herbie Hyde at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Hyde entered as champion and unbeaten, but widely dismissed. Brash and confident, he labeled Bowe overrated and promised to outbox him before stopping him late. Early on, he backed up the talk. Using speed, movement, and sharp combinations, Hyde danced around the bigger man and clearly took the opening 2 rounds, making Bowe look heavy-footed and frustrated. But the fight turned violently in the 3rd. Hyde suddenly hit the canvas under strange circumstances, ruled a slip, though he was visibly shaken. From that moment, the bout descended into a relentless siege. Bowe sensed weakness and began walking Hyde down, unloading heavy combinations and uppercuts that repeatedly sent the champion to the floor. Hyde's heart was undeniable. Time after time he dragged himself back up, battered, exhausted, and unsteady, refusing to quit. By the middle rounds, it became a test not of skill, but survival. Hyde scored brief moments of success, even staggering Bowe, but every rally only seemed to invite further punishment. Knockdown followed knockdown, 7 in total, in one of the most punishing heavyweight title fights of the 1990s. Even when Hyde's corner threw in the towel, referee Richard Steele waved it away under the rules, forcing the punishment to continue. Finally, midway through the 6th round, Bowe flattened Hyde once more. This time, there was no escape. Hyde was counted out at 2:25 of the round, ending a brutal contest that showcased both Bowe's crushing power and Hyde's extraordinary toughness. It wasn't a pretty win, but it was an emphatic one. In dismantling an undefeated champion through sheer force and attrition, Bowe reminded the heavyweight division that when he applied pressure, very few men could survive it. Number 2. 4 November 1995 versus Evander Holyfield. 3. The final chapter. The final act of one of heavyweight boxing's greatest trilogies delivered its most violent and decisive ending. Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield entered their 3rd meeting with everything already shared between them: classic battles, disputed moments, and championship history. But this time, there would be no judges. By 1995, both men were fighting for legacy rather than titles. Holyfield, having briefly retired after losing to Michael Moorer, returned with questions surrounding his health, but proved his resilience with a gritty win over Ray Mercer. Bowe, meanwhile, had rebounded from inconsistency to capture and defend the WBO title, though the belt was deliberately kept off the table for this rubber match. From the opening bell, the final chapter lived up to its name. The fight was savage, exhausting, and unforgiving, the most brutal bout of the trilogy. Both men were dropped, both visibly hurt, and neither willing to yield. Holyfield, clearly drained and later revealed to be suffering from hepatitis A, still summoned extraordinary resolve. In round 6, he delivered one of the most shocking moments of Bowe's career, flooring him with a left hook, the first knockdown Bowe had ever suffered as a professional. But where Holyfield's heart carried him into deep waters, Bowe's size and power ultimately decided the outcome. In the 8th round, Bowe turned the fight with authority, knocking Holyfield down twice with compact, punishing right hands. Though Holyfield rose from the first knockdown, the second proved too much. Referee Joe Cortez stepped in, stopping the contest and handing Holyfield the first stoppage loss of his storied career. It was a defining victory for Bowe, not just because he settled the trilogy, but because he did what no one else had managed: break Evander Holyfield down. In a rivalry filled with greatness, this was the night Riddick Bowe delivered the final, unforgettable statement. Number 1. 13 November 1992 versus Evander Holyfield, undisputed heavyweight championship. This was the night Riddick Bowe arrived at the very summit of heavyweight boxing, and did so in one of the greatest fights the division has ever seen. With Mike Tyson removed from the picture, the undisputed crown was firmly held by Evander Holyfield. But doubts lingered. Critics questioned the strength of Holyfield's reign after defenses against aging legends and a scare against Burt Cooper. Riddick Bowe, undefeated, younger, bigger, and brutally confident, was viewed as the ultimate test, the opponent who could either validate Holyfield completely or expose the limits of his championship run. From the opening bell, it was clear this was no routine title defense. Bowe's size, strength, and accuracy immediately troubled Holyfield, who struggled to match him in extended exchanges. Punch statistics told a revealing story. Bowe landed with frightening efficiency, consistently beating Holyfield to the heavier shots, while imposing his physicality over 12 relentless rounds. The fight reached legendary status in round 10, a round now etched into boxing history. Bowe opened with savage combinations that appeared close to overwhelming the champion, only for Holyfield to summon an extraordinary rally, firing back with furious combinations of his own. The crowd, commentators, and fighters themselves were caught in a moment of pure heavyweight drama. Bowe seized control again in round 11, battering Holyfield with sustained combinations before flooring him with a crushing right hand. Though badly hurt, Holyfield showed remarkable courage to survive the round, setting up a desperate final push. Knowing he needed a knockout, Holyfield emptied the tank in round 12. But Bowe stood firm, absorbing the assault and closing the fight on his own terms. When the scores were read, 117 to 110, 117 to 110, and 115 to 112, there was no controversy. Riddick Bowe was the new, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. The bout earned the Ring Magazine's Fight of the Year, with its unforgettable 10th round also named Round of the Year. More than a victory, this was a coronation, the defining win of Bowe's career, and one of the finest heavyweight championship performances ever recorded. This installment of the Top 5 Wins series dives into the heavyweight legacy of Evander Holyfield, a career built on heart, toughness, and moments that reshaped boxing history. This list strictly focuses on Holyfield at heavyweight, leaving aside his cruiserweight dominance, to spotlight the nights where he stepped in with the sport's biggest men and refused to be broken. From reclaiming the undisputed crown to surviving brutal wars against all-time greats, these victories define why Holyfield wasn't just a champion, but a standard. Number 5. 25th of October 1990 versus James Buster Douglas. This win earns its place not just for the result, but for the moment it represented. Just months after James Buster Douglas shocked the world by flattening Mike Tyson in Tokyo, he entered the ring as the undisputed heavyweight champion, and the man who stood in his way was Evander Holyfield. Douglas's victory over Tyson had made him an overnight superstar, but questions lingered about his discipline and focus. Those doubts were answered brutally. Douglas arrived overweight and out of shape, while Holyfield came in lean, sharp, and locked in. From the opening bell, the difference in preparation was obvious. Holyfield controlled the early rounds with speed and precision, outworking and outmaneuvering a sluggish champion. The end came suddenly in the third round. Douglas lunged forward with a telegraphed uppercut, lost his balance, and paid the price. Holyfield fired a perfectly timed straight right hand that caught Douglas clean on the chin, dropping him flat on his back. The referee counted him out as the heavyweight title changed hands once again. In just over 7 minutes, Holyfield didn't merely beat the man who beat Tyson, he dismantled him. It was the night Holyfield became undisputed heavyweight champion and announced himself as the division's new standard. Number 4. 19 April 1991 versus Big George Foreman. This win stands as one of the defining nights of Evander Holyfield's heavyweight reign, not for a knockout, but for the sheer level of danger he faced and overcame. Foreman was 42 years old, but this was no novelty act. Since returning from a decade-long retirement, he was 24-0 with 23 knockouts, riding a wave of popularity and belief that he could become the oldest heavyweight champion in history. Holyfield entered knowing exactly what was at stake. The early rounds saw him use speed, movement, and sharp combinations to bank points, but Foreman's presence was constant, looming, patient, and always threatening with fight-ending power. That tension exploded in the unforgettable 7th round. Holyfield began aggressively, but a missed hook opened the door for Foreman to counter with a huge right hand that briefly swung momentum. Foreman surged, landing heavy shots and pressing forward, before Holyfield dug deep and unleashed a furious multi-punch combination that staggered the giant and brought the crowd to its feet. It was the moment that defined the fight. Youth, speed, and heart against raw power and experience. Foreman never went down, never stopped coming, and even absorbed a point deduction late in the fight. But Holyfield never lost control. Over 12 demanding rounds, he outworked, outmaneuvered, and outlasted one of the most dangerous punchers in boxing history to secure a unanimous decision. The victory aged even better with time. Many believed this was Foreman's final shot at glory, until he stunned the world years later by winning the heavyweight title again. That future achievement only elevated Holyfield's win further, cementing this bout as a true test of championship greatness. Number 3. 8 November 1997 versus Michael Moorer. This was redemption, dominance, and finality rolled into one brutal night. 3 years earlier, Michael Moorer had handed Evander Holyfield one of the most frustrating losses of his career, becoming the first southpaw to win a major heavyweight title in the process. By 1997, Moorer had rebuilt himself as IBF champion, but this rematch would tell a very different story. The opening rounds were competitive, with Moorer using his sharp right jab and boxing well after an accidental head clash briefly halted the action. Through 4 rounds, the fight felt tense and balanced. Then everything changed. In round 5, Holyfield landed clean and dropped Moorer, signaling a dramatic shift in momentum. Although Moorer showed courage and briefly rallied in round 6, the damage was already done. From round 7 onward, the fight descended into controlled destruction. Holyfield repeatedly broke through Moorer's guard with crushing hooks and uppercuts, sending him to the canvas again and again. Moorer kept rising, driven by pride and toughness, but each knockdown drained what little resistance remained. By the end of round 8, Moorer had been floored 5 times, visibly exhausted and overwhelmed. The ringside doctor made the only responsible call, stopping the contest before round 9. Moorer pleaded to continue, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Holyfield had not only avenged his earlier defeat, he had done so emphatically, proving that this rivalry no longer belonged in the same conversation. It was one of Holyfield's most ruthless heavyweight performances, a victory that reasserted his authority and showcased his ability to rise, adapt, and dominate when it mattered most. Number 2. 6 November 1993 versus Riddick Bowe. This was vengeance earned the hard way. 1 year after losing a heavyweight classic to Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield returned not just to even the score, but to reclaim his place at the summit of the division. Their first encounter had been widely hailed as one of the greatest heavyweight fights ever. The rematch, improbably interrupted and relentlessly intense, proved just as memorable. Bowe again imposed himself early, taking control of the opening rounds with his size and power. But as so often defined Holyfield's career, resilience shifted the fight. Holyfield surged back through the middle rounds, matching Bowe punch for punch and refusing to concede ground. The bout took a surreal turn in round 7, when a powered paraglider crash-landed into the ring, halting the fight for more than 20 minutes and threatening to derail the momentum entirely. When the action resumed, Holyfield handled the chaos better. He boxed with urgency and precision, reopening Bowe's cuts and forcing the champion into exchanges he could no longer dominate. Though Bowe pressed hard down the stretch, knowing he needed the rounds, Holyfield consistently finished stronger, landing telling combinations in the closing seconds that swayed the judges. After 12 punishing rounds, Holyfield emerged with a majority decision victory, achieving something few heavyweights ever have, regaining the world title from the man who took it from him. In doing so, he joined elite company alongside Floyd Patterson and Muhammad Ali, becoming only the 3rd heavyweight champion to reclaim the crown in a direct rematch. Even more remarkably, this fight would stand as the only defeat of Bowe's professional career, a testament to the magnitude of Holyfield's achievement and one of the defining victories of his heavyweight legacy. Number 1. 9 November 1996 versus Mike Tyson. This was the night Evander Holyfield shattered boxing's assumptions. Written off almost universally and installed as a 5-1 underdog, Holyfield entered the fight portrayed as a fading former champion, facing an unstoppable force. Tyson came out fast and dangerous, landing an early right hand that briefly staggered Holyfield. But almost immediately, the fight revealed a truth few expected. Tyson could not overpower him. Holyfield had studied Tyson meticulously. When Tyson deviated from his usual left hook rhythm and fired a surprise right cross, Holyfield absorbed it, tied him up, and exposed the most important advantage of the fight, his superior strength. From that moment on, the dynamic shifted permanently. Tyson found himself being pushed backward, smothered in clinches, and denied the balance and leverage that fueled his explosive power. As the rounds wore on, Holyfield's strategy became brutally clear. He blocked Tyson's single-shot attacks, leaned on him physically, and countered with sharp, punishing combinations. Tyson struggled to adjust, growing increasingly frustrated as Holyfield dictated both pace and positioning. Though Tyson landed his best combination in the 5th round and briefly hurt Holyfield, it proved to be his last meaningful moment. In the 6th round, an accidental head clash opened a cut on Tyson, and moments later, Holyfield dropped him with a clean left hand, the first knockdown Tyson had suffered since his lone professional defeat. From there, the bout became a dismantling. Tyson swung wildly, missed often, and absorbed punishment in return. By the end of the 10th round, Holyfield had Tyson staggering and defenseless, held upright only by the ropes. The end came swiftly in the 11th. Holyfield unleashed another sustained barrage, and referee Mitch Halpern stepped in, stopping the fight and sealing one of the most iconic upsets in boxing history. With the victory, Holyfield became the first heavyweight since Muhammad Ali to win a world title 3 times, an achievement made even more remarkable by the doubts surrounding him beforehand. Though the lineal title remained with George Foreman at the time, this win redefined Holyfield's legacy. It wasn't just a victory over Mike Tyson, it was a masterclass in preparation, strength, intelligence, and will. Few fighters in boxing history struck fear like Mike Tyson. At his peak, fights didn't unfold, they ended violently. This is the top 5 wins of Mike Tyson, a countdown of the nights when raw intimidation, speed, and knockout power collided. From the rise of the youngest heavyweight champion ever, to the performances that defined Tyson's terrifying prime, this series strips away the myth and focuses on the wins that truly mattered, the moments when Tyson was at his most unstoppable. Number 5. 30 May 1987 versus Pinklon Thomas. Billed as Hard Road to Glory, this fight marked another brutal step in Mike Tyson's march toward undisputed heavyweight supremacy. Defending his WBA and WBC titles, Tyson faced former champion Pinklon Thomas, a tough, experienced contender who entered knowing survival would be his greatest challenge. From the opening bell, Tyson stalked Thomas relentlessly, pressing forward with explosive hooks and combinations. He nearly ended the fight in the 1st round, trapping Thomas on the ropes and unloading a ferocious barrage that showcased the raw violence of Tyson's prime. Thomas survived by clinching, jabbing, and leaning on veteran instincts, managing to frustrate Tyson long enough to drag the fight into the middle rounds. But the pressure never eased. In the 6th round, Tyson finally broke through, landing a crushing left hook that visibly stunned Thomas before unleashing a savage 15-punch combination. Thomas collapsed for the first knockdown of his career, prompting trainer Angelo Dundee to step in and halt the punishment. The fight was ruled a technical knockout, another emphatic statement from Tyson. Beyond the knockout itself, the victory carried historic weight. It came during HBO's Heavyweight World Series, a tournament designed to unify the division, and left Tyson holding 2 of the 3 major titles, with only 1 fight remaining to crown an undisputed champion. This was Tyson not just winning, but advancing, methodically and violently, toward heavyweight immortality. Number 4. 22nd January 1988 versus Larry Holmes. Billed as heavyweight history, this was more than a title defense. It was a symbolic passing of eras. Mike Tyson entered as the undisputed heavyweight champion, while Larry Holmes returned from retirement, chasing one last shot at reclaiming greatness after years of controversy surrounding his losses to Michael Spinks. The fight carried enormous cultural weight. Holmes had long modeled his style on Muhammad Ali, who sat ringside on the night, and many framed the bout as a proxy debate. How would Tyson have fared against Ali's generation? Holmes talked confidently beforehand, but once the bell rang, the gap in age, speed, and power quickly became clear. Holmes attempted to survive with movement, jabs, and clinching, briefly finding moments of success, particularly early in the 4th round. But Tyson's pressure never relented. As Holmes backed toward the ropes, Tyson detonated a sequence of crushing shots, dropping the former champion repeatedly in the same round. Each knockdown came with increasing violence, until a final right hook flattened Holmes for the 3rd time and forced the stoppage. The technical knockout was decisive and brutal. Tyson hadn't just beaten a former great, he had dismantled him. For many fans, this was the night Tyson fully transcended hype and became something more ominous, a dominant, undisputed champion who appeared capable of overwhelming legends just as easily as contenders. Number 3. 1 August 1987 versus Tony Tucker. Billed as the ultimate, this bout represented the final step in Mike Tyson's rapid rise to the summit of boxing. It was the climax of the Heavyweight World Series, a tournament designed to unify the division, and the night Tyson aimed to become the undisputed heavyweight champion. Unlike Tyson's previous title opponents, Tony Tucker was no easy demolition job. Fresh off winning the vacant IBF title only 9 weeks earlier, Tucker arrived confident, mobile, and willing to engage. Early on, he gave Tyson problems. Using awkward movement and quick counters, Tucker landed clean shots and briefly disrupted Tyson's rhythm, even stealing a couple of early rounds and proving far more durable than most expected. As the fight settled, Tyson adjusted. From the middle rounds onward, his pressure and body work began to take effect. He closed distance more effectively, landed heavier power shots, and gradually forced Tucker into survival mode. Tucker's output dropped, his movement became more defensive, and clinching replaced ambition as Tyson imposed himself physically. By the championship rounds, Tucker resorted to showmanship and taunts rather than sustained offense. But the outcome was no longer in doubt. Tyson controlled the latter half of the fight and earned a clear unanimous decision, becoming the youngest undisputed heavyweight champion in history. While it lacked the violence of his knockouts, this win was crucial. It showed Tyson could adapt, endure resistance, and dominate over 12 rounds, completing his transformation from destructive contender to fully unified heavyweight king. Number 2, 22nd November 1986 versus Trevor Berbick. This was the night Mike Tyson officially arrived at the top of the heavyweight division. At just 20 years old, Tyson challenged reigning WBC champion Trevor Berbick in the first major step of the Heavyweight World Series, with history firmly in his sights. Berbick had only just claimed the WBC title himself, edging Pinklon Thomas by decision, but his reign was immediately overshadowed by the sheer momentum behind Tyson. Despite being the champion, the 32-year-old Berbick entered as a clear underdog against the 27-0 Wrecking Machine, who had stopped 25 opponents and was chasing Floyd Patterson's record as the youngest heavyweight champion ever. From the opening bell, the fight was brutally one-sided. Tyson exploded forward with trademark speed and power, battering Berbick with vicious combinations and giving the champion no room to breathe. By the end of the first round, Berbick was already reeling, having been driven across the ring by a savage flurry. Round 2 was even more emphatic. Tyson dropped Berbick early with a crushing combination, and although Berbick beat the count, he was helpless under the sustained assault. Moments later, a right to the body followed by a devastating left hook sent Berbick crashing down again. His attempts to rise ended in one of boxing's most iconic images, Berbick collapsing repeatedly as his legs betrayed him. Referee Mills Lane waved it off at 2:35 of the second round, crowning Mike Tyson the WBC heavyweight champion of the world. At 20 years and 4 months old, Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history, a defining win that marked the beginning of one of boxing's most fearsome reigns. Number 1, 27th June 1988 versus Michael Spinks. This was the fight that answered everything, once and for all. Mike Tyson and Michael Spinks entered the ring both undefeated, both heavyweight champions, and both with legitimate claims to the throne. Tyson held the WBA, WBC, and IBF belts, having bulldozed his way through HBO's Heavyweight World Series. Spinks, meanwhile, was the ring and lineal champion, the man who had never lost his crown in the ring after dethroning Larry Holmes. It was boxing's ultimate showdown, the richest fight in history at the time, and which drew comparisons to Ali versus Frazier in the build-up. The build-up was electric. Experts were split. Legends, writers, and champions debated whether Spinks' movement, speed, and ring IQ could outbox Tyson's raw destruction. Muhammad Ali picked Spinks. So did Sugar Ray Leonard, Archie Moore, and Teddy Atlas. Tyson entered as a 4-1 favorite, but doubt still lingered. That doubt lasted 91 seconds. From the opening bell, Tyson exploded forward and shattered the script. A thunderous left hook landed within the first 10 seconds, instantly forcing Spinks into survival mode. Trapped on the ropes, Spinks was overwhelmed by Tyson's pressure. A brutal left uppercut and crushing body shot sent Spinks to his knee for only the second knockdown of his career. Moments later, Tyson slipped a Spinks' right hand and fired a savage left-right combination that flattened the lineal champion. This time, Spinks could not rise. Referee Frank Cappuccino counted him out. The fight was over after just 10 punches. 8 landed by Tyson. In one devastating round, Mike Tyson unified everything: the belts, the lineage, and the argument. It was named Ring Magazine's Round of the Year for 1988, and it stands as the most iconic win of Tyson's career. The night he didn't just become undisputed champion, but an undisputed force of boxing history.